The Truth, a dirty story about a dirty country. Empty Nation series, Book 3. Written by Sue Nish. Narrated by B. Flowers. Chapter 2, College, Part B. Sex Psychology 101. My name is Professor Rim, and I'm your instructor, mentor, and the head of the Sissyology department. This is Sex Psychology 101. You will be introduced to the parts of psychology which explores why we humans desire to have sex with a particular type of livestock called sissy. I'm proud to announce your school, the Federal University of Cultural Integration and Transition, FUCIT, is part of a nationwide program for research into this fascinating topic. It's called ISIS, the Institute for the Study of Intercourse with Sissies. This topic focuses on the transition of all Americans into an integrated, homogeneous sissy and stud culture. This was all started back in the year 2213 after the overthrow of the fascist American government. Then, the Second United States Constitution was partially ratified yet passed into law. Afterward, the Sissification Act was voted down by Congress. The congressmen who voted it down were all immediately impeached. Then, to expedite the passing of the Sissification Act, the power of the President of the United States Incorporated was implemented to enact it by law of an executive order. So this was the will of the people. This is in accordance with our newly formed Supreme Imperial Executive Branch of Government. This was a major improvement over our previous democratic government. Now our president has the imperial power to impose his will for the good of all of us, as Caesar and others had in the past. But you know all this, and I won't bore you with politics. So let's move on to a more exciting part of psychology, sex. Okay, you all look shocked about my abruptness. So I'll ask a question. Who here likes sex? Okay, everyone raised their hands. I think if you didn't, please just leave the lecture hall. The whole class breaks out in laughter. Yes, this would be funny and really weird too, if any of you didn't like sex. Here's another one of my weird multi-part questions, which you should be used to by the end of the semester. 1. How can someone have a big dick and at the same time be a sissy? And if so, 2, would they be gay because of their super long appendage? Oh, this is, all the students have a blank stare. A tough one. Okay, no hands. Tough room. Oh, sorry. There is one hand up. Go ahead, the stud-looking gentleman in the middle row. Professor, I'm a little confused by your question. Can the person be bred from birth as a sissy and then want to be a man with a big penis? This is a very good question. The answer is no. BFB purebreds are biologically, through gene manipulation, brought into this world as females with a micropenis, vaginus, and believe it or not, a uterus, which is inoperable for some weird biological reason. And you cannot reverse the effects of gene re-engineering which created them. They are Homo cis sapiens and can't change biology. Basically, they're monkeys who look like humans. But I wanted an answer to my question. Let me be more specific. I'm focusing on one of the hottest and most misunderstood topics in all of sissydom, and we're going to spend a lot of time on the topic of sissies and the different types of sissies this semester. Side note. And before we get into this part of the lecture, I need to go over some basic facts and theories about breeding sissies. 1. In the USA Inc., currently sissies are brought into this world by way of an inoculated human-human, HH, host couple, where both parents are human. But there are historical studies which have linked the breeding of vaginus through the millenniums. Oh, wow. Oh. The entire auditorium is clamoring over the thought. Yes. The researchers have linked but yet to prove that the sissy creature has existed for thousands of years. They were isolated from the masses, kept in cages, and confined in the castles and cathedrals of the kings, queens, royalty, and deities of the church. They were simply used as sex toys by these powers. So, too, the vaginus can be bred with a sissy human SH couple where the human is inoculated to breed with the sissy. And there's studies being conducted at Hard-on Vard, which have been proven because of lack of contrary evidence that all of the emperors, commanders, royalty, prime ministers, presidents, popes, heads of state, leaders of the world are all bred from a pair of SH parents. Wow. Oh, wow. Oh. The class is in disbelief. Oh, and guess what? The children bred from the SH parents turns out to be... What? The students are in suspense about the answer. Wait, I haven't gotten to this part yet. Homo femininus. Okay, with that side note out of the way, one of the most compelling types of sissies to learn about is, as I've mentioned, sissies with large penises. These humanoids born with this anomaly are creatures bred to be feminine by loving, sissification drug altered sissy parents. These parents both have a long sissy lineage in their families, so needless to say, all the males in their families had extremely small microdicks. But in the case of Homo femininus, the sissy child is born with an unusually long penis with large testicles. And folks, I'm talking big here. Longer than any stud penis on record, and in most cases being 16 inches or longer when fully erect, which reaches halfway down to their kneecaps of the sissy when soft. This is definitely one of the most bizarre and fascinating topics in all of sissydom. But strangely enough, it is also the one which has the least amount of data compiled on it. This is mostly due to the fact that these half-women, half-man type mutated freaks are extremely secretive about their lives. Very little is known about these weird sissy abominations. There are even myths passed down through the ages about them being hideous monsters, reaping havoc across the land, raping and torturing fragile little sissy bitches, all of which are unsubstantiated, of course. And just a note here for all of you young studs in the class who dream of having the biggest dick in the world, the benefits of which is debatable. I mean, an extremely long penis like the one I've described can be both a burden and a blessing to the one wielding it. Hell, if not careful, someone could trip over the fucking thing. The stud's laughing out loud. You said fucking, Professor. Or worse yet, poke their eye out with a dick that big. Okay. Settle down, class. Yes, I know I said the F word. Get used to it. But enough joking around. It's obvious I have to reword my question or provide more historical information here. So, some of you might be wondering if someone can be both a sissy and be gay. First off, we all know gay sex is illegal in the United States, Inc. after the second U.S. Constitution was partially ratified. And for that matter, the acceptance of sissydom and human mutation is rejected and therefore illegal in every country except the United States of America Incorporated. But it's a social issue, and this is a sex psychology course. So let's try to answer the question with science, not politics. Well, let's start here. One fact is, these freaks are a product of skewed chromosomes. This turns out a very unusual anomaly of the Homo cis sapien called Homo femininus, and it's natural for a highly developed and socially controlled industrial nation like the United States, Inc. to reject the thought that nature made a mistake. But taking a scientific approach, we just have to ignore the occurrence of a Homo femininus because it happens so rarely. The students are scratching their heads. This Homo femininus phenomenon occurs in approximately 1 in every 500,000 sissies bred, making it extraordinarily rare. As I've mentioned, the parents, oddly enough, are both from sissy families whose male members have a long history of astonishingly small penises. But the verdict is not in as to whether the parents are HH or SH or whatever yet. The Homo feminist sissy child is born with all of the feminine mannerisms of a normal sissy. Feelings about her prettiness and their physical features are all female. So they're like most sissy children, except they grow huge breasts and are larger physically, height and weight-wise. But there's one thing much different about them. Their penis size is much larger than children born from a stud class family. In fact, the Homo femininus child's penis oftentimes grows to be twice as long as the penis of a child born from a stud family, and this is regardless if the stud family is taking the PED medication or not. Yes, the petite, long, blonde-haired sissy in the cupless bra. Professor Rim, if the abnormal Homo femininus child is born a sissy, will they want to have sex with men like sissies do? Great question, and an interesting one. The answer can be broken down into 2 parts. Yes, the mind of the Homo femininus desires to have sex with men, as do all sissies. But the penis of the Homo femininus wants to have sex with another sissy. So the answer is both yes and no. If you're not confused yet, you will be. And it's why we're studying this particular abnormality. Because as students majoring in sissyology, there is going to be times in your professional careers in the whoring industry where being familiar with these oddities of sissydom will be beneficial to you. Being familiar with both the Homo femininus and our compensation system developed by our Department of the Treasury and DHMC is going to be very helpful to you in dealing with sissy/stud issues. And oddly enough, these special yet unusual sissies play an important role in the system we call MSES. Professor, I'm very confused. Yes, I can see why you would be confused by the topic of penis size. Because, young lady, you're a sissy, and sissies are on the opposite side of the penis size spectrum in relationship to the Homo femininus. And especially considering you sissies, and this might sound a bit demeaning, but realistically, you have no admirable way of using your micro-sized penises to give sexual pleasure to men or women. In fact, a sissy's only redeeming feature is their desire to process LCTs with their vaginus like an ATM machine. And honestly, sissies are classified by the United States Department of Agriculture as livestock animals and used primarily for processing LCTs for breeding. So if not used as a whoring animal because of an abnormal sexually active vaginus, they're often just sold by our government as pets, aka hoes, to support the needs of the wealthy stud entrepreneurs or political figures here in the USA Inc. And on a historical note, you can see the similarity between the sissy class and the working middle class several hundred years ago. The sissies will be utilized till our government exhausts their usefulness as it had the working class in the post-Lehman Brothers crisis era. Yes, you're right, Professor. I'm sorry I asked. Jeez. God, Mary, what an asshole. Shush, Jane, don't you dare get us in trouble with the head of the sissyology department. My apologies to the young sissy student who asked the question. I didn't mean to offend anyone, but so oftentimes do. And no, please, don't be sorry, young lady. I'm the one who should be sorry, my dear. Maybe I was too coarse with my answer. Perhaps this can clear up some of the misconception here and get my foot out of my mouth. As you know, sissies fundamentally have a one-track mind. Their modus operandi, their only method of operation, is to please men with their vaginate anus, also known as an ass pussy. I mean, sissies are designed, engineered, and bred to be sex machines by the United States government. And quite frankly, the United States Inc. government has always enslaved its population into austerity of some kind or another under the cloak of democracy by the uber rich, which is all for our benefit, of course. These wealthy citizens graciously provide their resources to control our government for a good reason. Our government typically gets out of control and abuses its citizenry. But the sissy type worked the hardest is the B types, like the sissy who asked the question. They're worked like farm animals, like a mule in whoring stations because, well, they were bred to do so. You see, class, the sissy is not a human creature as they appear to be. They were created in Sissyology laboratories here in the USA Inc. by altering their genetic traits to produce man-pleasing sex objects called Homo cis sapiens, who are typically referred to as sissies. On the flip side of your sissydom world is Homo femininus, who are just genetic freaks who are not concerned about how much or if any pleasure their sissy sex partner is experiencing. And they're definitely not concerned with their government's profit margins. So what we do know is this. The Homo femininus is only concerned with the pleasure their long pricks are experiencing. They get horny less frequently than normal sissies, thank God, but still have a strong desire to ejaculate their copious amounts of love potion onto and into their unsuspecting victims. Homo femininus basically is very similar in nature to the old post-Bretton Woods, interventionist, neocon, imperialistic, fascist government of the old United States. They're devious, narcissists, which are greedy, conceited, arrogant, imperialistic, macho, domineering, controlling, self-centered assholes who just want to enjoy pleasure and profit at the expense of others. Secretive. And the Homo femininus are very secretive by nature. Like I was saying, we know very little about this strange group of sissies. They live lives in typical roles, usually as professionals of some kind. Teachers, politicians, sociologists, engineers, sissy poop culinary masters, professional wrestlers, lawyers, proctologists, and judges. But unbeknownst to their co-workers, colleagues, friends if they have any, and neighbors, they live a secretive, erotic life, and typically never bestow the knowledge of their sexual intentions, physical abnormality, or social class to anyone. Instead, the Homo femininus live solitary lives as freaks of nature under the facade of normality. The really spooky thing about the psychology of the Homo femininus sissy mind is that they rarely do have sex compared to a normal sissy. Like I said, as seldom as maybe once a day compared to a normal sissy who has on the average 50 or more orgasms per day. But when they do have a need to ejaculate and have chosen a sissy to violate, they are extremely clever and cunning about how they lure their prey into their web so they can insert their ominous-looking massive voodoo stick up the sweet, vulnerable, unadulterated sissy girl's love hole. And this is when they hose the precious sissy's special places with mind-controlling, psychotropic love cream, turning the frail, flowering young sissy girl into a sex slave of the Homo femme. Ooh, wow. Ugh. I'm not bending over for that. Yeah, it's scary. I'm locking my dorm door tonight. The sissies are all frightened. Okay. Calm down, you sissies. You have nothing to fear. Aha, calm down. God, you think I was talking about vampires or something. One question, Professor. Yes, the voluminous busted sissy lady here in the front row, next to the sissy girl I insulted. Thank you, Professor. I'm Mary. By your description, Professor, it does sound like a really interesting and juicy orgasmic topic. but I'm also a little confused and frightened as well. So who does the Homo femininus have sex with again? Glad you asked, Mary. Homo femininus sissies only have sex with sissies. And you're Mary Doone, aren't you? Yes? Mary answers with a bewildered look on her face. Professor, I'm Mary Doone. Oh, I watched the video up on the internet before class of you. It went viral with 60 million views on SissyTube. Very impressive. What? Yes, Mary, you're somewhat of a celebrity now. The video was taken of you speaking in Professor Yowie's sociology class this morning. Oh, I didn't know about the video, Professor. Yeah, the video is huge. And it's good to see FUCIT students are being recognized on a global scale for their stand on issues in the sissydom community. Bravo to both of you. Good job. Thanks, Professor. And my colleague, Professor Yowie, gave me a heads up about the two of you. What? Oh my. Jane covers her face with her hands in disbelief. Cock God. So, good job, you two. You should be very proud of your sissy selves. The femcock. Professor. Yes, big fellow way up in the back. What's your question? So, can a stud screw a homo femininist sissy in the ass like they do the predominant faggot type sissy? Oh, I'm again sorry about the confusion. The homo femininist type sissy does not take studs up the vaginus like the regular sissies do. So, for clarity, the homo femininist is the fucker, not the fucky. And my friend, stop calling sissy girls faggots. It's not only an incorrect categorization of an entire subclass of society, but also offensive to many in the sissydom community. I noticed you stug folks love calling sissies faggot, gay, queer, femboy, she-male, trannies, homo, all of which are homo sapiens, not homo cis sapiens. So, just a word to the wise, I will dock you points for incorrect genome referencing on your papers. You can reference the genomes of the MSES in SM069. SM069, Section 18, Appendix S, Genomes in the MSE. Okay, but let's get back to Mary's question. Who do homo femininus have sex with? Well, first let me stop here to reword the medical term for homo femininus as its street name, femcock, or for short, just fem. These femmes would obviously need to penetrate a sex partner to gain pleasure, considering their immense penis size. We all know the sex rules, but biologically, who do you think they would prefer to perform coitus with, girl or boy? Can anyone tell which of these two genders is preferred by the femmes? Yes, the sissy trainer-looking young man with the huge biceps. Well, Professor, you said the femmes were both gay and a sissy, so I'm figuring femmes like to have sex with men and or women, just like a sissy who swings both ways. Yes, you're right to a certain degree. Femmes would have sex with men or women as any sissy would. But remember, this homosexuality, gayness, is illegal in the USA Inc., and is so by the partial ratification of the 29th Amendment, Section 29, and later set into law by a presidential executive order. These laws set the new morality rules for our nation, which makes it legal for men to screw sissies. And wait, because this is the part which will totally confuse you. Because the sissy type of femcock has been gender designated a male by the Bureau of Sex Classification and a sissy by the Department of Health and Mind Control, the femme may engage in sex only with a sissy or a sissy breeding women, but they may never engage in sex with men as regular normal sissies do. Remember, Sissies can engage in sex with men because they are classified by the Bureau of Sex Classification as being female, despite the fact that they do not have a fully functional uterus. Go figure. And the absence of a uterus which can produce. Oh, and by the way, the dormant uterus is an effect of gene modification. I mean, if the United States Inc. government wanted sissies to get pregnant with monkey babies, they would have given them one that works. Mary, what the hell is she talking about? Class, let me set you straight. I've studied sociology all of my life. I have a doctorate degree in the damn subject, and I always get confused explaining femmes. So, don't feel bad about your confusion. If you remember anything we studied today, remember this one thing. Femmes are a subclass of the whore class and is the only male group in the sissy social class of the MSES. Word to the wise, student. Get this right on the final exam, and you pretty much pass the course. Just kidding. Also, don't forget this important fact. The sissy culture is the only official social class in the United States which can legally participate in providing recreational and monetary transactions for labor compensation. This process is also known as LCTs. These transactions are available only to the working male population in the USA Inc. in the modern socioeconomic system. And this has everything to do with what I mentioned earlier about the MSES/compensation system here. So, after all of that lengthy explanation, is there a choice of who a femme may legally have sex with? I'll spare you the embarrassment. The answer is no. And because of the discombobulated oversight nature of our Congress in Washington, they can only have coitus with a sissy and breed with sissy mommies. Although there are members of the U.S. Congress who are trying to pass a bill banning femme breeding. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but regardless if a law passes, currently femmes happen to be born out of sheer coincidence. Femmes have only been born from sissy parents, and femmes have the same civil rights, benefits, and privileges defined in the 30th Amendment as do the normal, everyday sissy girls who use studs so often and wantonly screw. Rim and Mary during break. So let's take a short 10-minute break so all of this can soak in. Miss Doon, a word, please. What do you think she wants, Mary? I don't know, Jane. Just let go of my hand, darling. I gotta go talk to her. Yes, Professor Rim. I'll wait right outside the lecture hall, Mary. Okay, babe. Try not to get into trouble, Jane. Ms. Doon, as head of the Sociology Department, I'll also be at the NSA meeting on Friday with Professor Yowie. Great, Professor. Glad to hear it. I've read all of your books and published journal papers, Professor, and it's an honor to be in your class. Well, thank you, Mary. Jane and I. Oh, Mary, I do hope Miss Goldberg accepted my apology in class today. Oh, Professor, don't worry about Jane. She's just a live wire, always standing up for sissy rights. Yes, Mary, Jane definitely has sissy pride, that's for sure. Yeah, that's my girl. Jane and I are sissy promised to each other, and we're planning on getting married. Oh, well, congratulations. Thanks, Professor. I was going to tell you we're both excited about the possible NSA opportunity you're offering us. And thank you for selecting Jane and I. We look forward to participating in the NSA program. Oh, well, thank you, my dear. Professor Rim is holding Mary's hand, rubbing sticky sperm-smelling gel into her palm. It's a pleasure. Mary smells the cummy smell from the gel, but her mind starts to drift off. To have students who, Mary is starting to feel a little dizzy, enjoy participating intimately. Professor? Oh, I think, Remy. Mary, here. Please sit down, dear. You look dizzy. You will make a promise. Mary's head is spinning. To me, Mary. Yes, Professor. Make a promise. Yes, you are promised to Jane, but you will also promise yourself to me, Mary. Yes, Prof. Remy. That's right, Mary. I will rim you for your own good. I will rim you frequently. Now, go back to Jane and hold her hand, because you're promised to Jane, and you'll also be promised to me as well. Yes, Professor. Mary, who are you promised to? I am promised to you and Jane. That's right, Mary. Now, go back to Jane, your lover and lifelong companion. Several minutes later, what did Jane and Mary are back in their seats? She say, What? What did Professor Rim say to you? Say? Yeah, Mare, what did she say? I don't remember. What do you mean you don't remember? It was a minute ago. Are you on drugs? Mary? Yeah. Hey, Jane, I'm Sissy promised to you, Jane. Yeah, I know. What's happening? We're in sex. Jane shakes Mary by the shoulders to revive her. Psychology class. Mary, wake. Jane taps Mary on the cheek. Up, sissy girl. Breaks over. Welcome back to class. Is everybody here? I think so, Professor. Okay, so now that we have defined who the femmes can have sex with, sissies only, let's analyze the psychological, sexual, and physical relationship between the sissy girl and the femme sissy. To analyze the pair more closely, let's look at both. The one, the typical prevalent feminine little cocklet or clit, either dom or bitch respectively, will put out vaginas to anyone who has performed labor. And this is providing there are MO credits in the system needed to be compensated to them for work they've performed. For your reference, see SM 069, Section 12, Appendix L, MO credits. And the second type of sissy is the smallest minority in sissydom and is sexually active in different ways. The femme type of sissy does not provide whole to the sexual partner as the normal sissy does. Instead, they insert their long appendages into sissy girls. Huh, okay, I know what you're thinking. So what? Everybody screws sissies. Well, here's the amazing part. With no help from other men, the femme can easily FO a sissy girl using only their monstrous-sized male appendage. And stop and fathom this thought for a moment here. Considering it takes a minimum of over 400 pricks to FO the average mutated humanoid sissy. Yet the femmes accomplish this solely by using their enormous dicks alone, and oftentimes with just several thrusts. Now that's amazing. And bear in mind the femmes all have dicks longer and thicker than any known stud penis, with the longest recorded femme penis size being 18 inches long and 3 inches wide. A truly massive cock. Despite the enormity of their penis, appearance-wise, it is hard to recognize a femme because they dress very conservatively by modern standards, with skirts or dresses with a minimum of just below the knee length. For example, like the below-the-knee dress I have on today would be what a femme sissy wears, and they also have very large breasts, coincidentally very similar to my own. So, they dress pretty much like your average stud lady. We won't even consider non-stud women here. Skank is not the style femmes are into. And unlike their sissy counterparts, like for example Miss Goldberg here, with her exposed, well, everything, the femmes never expose their genitals. In fact, there has never been a photograph or video taken of them. Except, of course, for the ones confiscated and or destroyed by the DHMC. They have never displayed their massive male appendages in public, And like the stud ladies and non-stud women, they have never exposed their breasts or have gone bare-chested in public again. For example, never like Miss Goldberg's hard, aroused, lactating nipples revealed by her cupless bra. Oh, Miss Goldberg, you don't mind if I use you as an example for the class, do you? No, Professor, please. Jane stands up and turns to her classmates and throws out her chest proudly while tweaking both her nipples. Use me, I'm a sissy. Woohoo, hoe bag, yahoo, you whore. Woohoo, show us everything, bitch, you hoe. The stud students express their desires. Thank you for this unneeded display, Miss Goldberg. Okay, settle down, that's enough. Miss Goldberg, I'd like to remind you titillation performed by a sissy is illegal. Sorry, Professor. Now back to... Oh yeah, a simple way to understand the difference is that one type of sissy bends over for the femme sissy to bang them in their vaginus. The other type of sissy, the one with the large dong, is literally hung like a horse, bends the sissy girl over and rims out the little feminine sissy's asshole. Oh, I am sorry. The clinical name for a sissy's asshole is vaginus. But you college kids are smart enough to know this. Why sissies were created in America. And here's a point you freshmen have to be clear on if you're going to study sissydom here in the United States, Inc. Basically, in the case of the sissies, it's a legal issue as far as who gets it up the ass. This is basically by law, like I've said, men cannot do men in the ass anymore. In other words, having conventional man-on-man sex is called gay and is illegal now in the year 2251. The United States is way too morally correct with the adoption of sissydom to condone gay sex. And here's where most folks lose the true meaning of sissydom and its integration into American life. I'll clarify something here, and this is important. Class, in our country, gay sex has become illegal, not because of moral issues, quite the contrary. In fact, to prove my point, even the old dysfunctional monetary system here, the fractional reserve banking system in this country, was designed by private bankers in a structure to inflict as much anal pressure on its depositors and debtors as possible. So, financially speaking, Americans have always had something up their ass, debt to the banks and tax debt to the government. It's this mix of money, sex, and government that makes the United States poised to be the next world's superpower through its total control of sissydom. And globally speaking, the United States does have the ultimate solution by aspiring to globally have an American vaginus in every home in the world. And of course, Americans would conveniently profit financially from every penetration and subsequent addiction to vaginus. This would truly return global domination back to the United States. At this point, and I'm off topic, you might be, and I certainly hope you are, wondering who the culprits were in the pre-Second U.S. Constitution economy that destroyed the most prosperous nation on earth. Well, it was the Federal Reserve Bank, the Fed for short. It was, metaphorically speaking, openly screwing our government and the U.S. population in the ass when they were printing all of the trillions of fiat U.S. dollars. Then the Fed used the funny money to buy U.S. Treasury bonds, aka Ponzi scheme. I digress. Where were we? Oh yeah, anal sex. Gay sex is illegal because after the financial crises of 2007, the disillusioned American males changed their sexual orientation from a vagina to ass pussy. And back in the day, before the creation of the Homo cis sapien genome, an ass pussy was actually referred to as an asshole by some uneducated folks. But besides what you want to call a screw hole, my main point here is this. After the financial crisis of 2007, the American male could not afford to raise a family in the United States, which by no fault of its own led to the change in the male population's sexual orientation. Talk about screwing people in the ass. Here's a historical side note. The USA Inc. had a long history of some 100 years or so of screwing people and taking their natural resources, also known as interventionism, which is a form of political sodomy disguised as democracy. Right now, you're all probably scratching your heads wondering how a once great nation like the United States could have ever become so screwed up. I mean, it's the only country in the world that replaced vaginal intercourse with vaginous sissy sex. I mean, how screwed up is that? Well, there are a lot of psychological theories out there about this American phenomena. All the research tries to justify screwing people in the ass as a solution to monetary problem. But after decades of analysis, the general consensus is the sexual change of which hole to screw stems from a monkey see, monkey do scenario, where our government was seen as the fucker and the US citizens assume the bitch position as the fucky. Then, of course, the US citizens just started mounting anything in sight, aka ass pussy. Besides, sodomy was the hard-working American male's expression of its true hatred it felt towards the United States government due to its government's deconstruction of a once prosperous working class from which the working American male had belonged. So, as some of you might be saying, Professor, why break up the party? Why make gayness illegal if Americans prefer to do people in the ass? Why not leave well enough alone? Well, yes, they would have, but there was an obvious shortage problem: supply and demand economics. The amount of gay men willing to prostitute themselves out was very limited, and the United States government had to step in and take charge of the situation by implementing the MSES. It was an intervention. You see, this is the American way of conflict resolution. For example, after the 2007 financial crisis, our government here in the US produced fiat money as a financial stimulus for its corporate masters and banking buddies on Wall Street. And nowadays, it produces ass pussy, also known as sissies, as a monetary stimulus. In fact, there are even new economic theories based on the relationship between economic systems and sissydom. At Harvard University, and also here at FUCIT, there are new courses offered in financial vaginous economics. This new vaginous economics theory has Ponzi written all over it, as does every financial theory. But the financial vaginous theory is being embraced now because it has less joblessness and starvation associated with it, as did the old Keynesian economics. And there you have it, boys, girls, and girls, why 30% of the American population is being bred into existence to be sissies. Fem research. Now, knowing what we just went over, you can understand why the femmes are seen in the likeness of our previous government here in the United States. The femme, our government, is the perpetrator, and the sissy, the ones being sodomized, depicts the American working class. So remember, even though they are sissies, the femmes are seen to have the upper hand and a very similar resemblance to our government officials, and a perfect likeness to our government's crony private banking buddies. The femmes usually go an entire lifetime without taking a single physical or financial debt, creating dick up their wealthy asses. Truly amazing. Zero liability. Simply astonishing. For that matter, according to the new financial anal economic theory, American businesses, bankers, femmes, and the USA Inc. government has or assumes none of the debt, blame, or responsibility for the misery it has inflicted on the world's populations through a vaginous addiction. So, in conclusion, and I'm sure you're bored with this stuff by now, it leaves only the predominant tiny coquette vulnerable type of sissy to service the femmes' gargantuan penises. This is the same type of situation our stud class males are masters at. They have a primitive need to screw sissies when they are not married to a stud breeding lady. Albeit, a femme doing a sissy in the vaginus is still rare due to the fact that there's estimated only to be approximately 300 femme-type sissies in existence in the USA. And femme, as well as normal sissies, are banned in every country in the world except the United States. But regardless of the infrequency of the sex, there have been some studies which describe the sex between these two types of sissies as memorable, to say the least. So, any questions? Yes, over here. The stud breeding young lady. Professor, what do you mean it's memorable? Oh, well, in my new book, Sissyology, Where Are We Going and Will We Ever Get There? I devoted an entire chapter to femmes and their unusual, uncanny ability to totally control a sissy girl with nothing more than their magnificent male appendage. It's been documented by researchers here at the FUCIT Institute of Sexual Arousal that when a femme rims a sissy girl, it is an unforgettable event who the tiny peanut-sized clit sissy never forgets in their entire lifetimes, which only serves to create feelings of dependence on the femmes. Because after sex with a femme, the sissy realizes they just had the most mind-blowing sex of their lives, and sex without a femme would be trivial in comparison. Though there are side effects experienced by the sissies who are preyed upon by the femmes. For example, there are recorded cases of sissies being hospitalized after a femme has mounted the privileged sissy's love hole. And typically, the sissy girl must refrain from engaging in sex for several days or longer after being rimmed by a femme. Not only because they're so sore they can't walk straight, but also because of the pints of femme cream which has been implanted into the sissy's puss. The cream, which is not only an aphrodisiac, but also a mind-controlling and numbing hallucinogenic as well, which, by the way, is found nowhere else in nature, except in the femme's sperm. The phenomena. On a sociological note, how did all of this come to be? As I've stated, there's a correlation between the femmes and our previous American government here in the United States. Of course, like I've mentioned, there are myths handed down that claim femmes have been around for centuries, although none of these claims have been confirmed, substantiated, or proven, and are assumed by some to be nothing more than folk tales. The realistic explanation, according to the USA Inc., is, through the miracle of modern science, the sissification drugs have produced the phenomena. But this was not the original intention of the biogenetic engineers who invented the sissification drugs. They didn't want to produce sissy girls with extremely long penises who have an insatiable desire to screw young innocent sissies. And the aphrodisiac, mind-controlling, hallucinogenic effect of the femme cream is also an abnormality. But the femmes are considered a welcome mutation nonetheless, because being dosed by their special type of man cream is not known to have any detrimental effects socially, physically, or mentally. Also, class, I mentioned the large voluminous amount of man cream produced by these freaks. This is designed into the normal sissy girl genetics to produce larger volumes of jizz, but only because the scientists knew the sissy girl would be engaged sexually with many sex partners and process LCTs constantly. So to emulate the sissy's continued participation in the sex acts and to enhance the sexual experience of the male participant, they genetically designed the sissy's clits to squirt copious amounts of jizz. This just carried over onto the femme's physiology, but to an extreme degree. The femmes' huge balls produce several pints of intoxicating man cream per dosing and quarts per day. They are totally amazing creatures. Pimp/whore. Again, to make this topic more palatable, I use the analogy of pimp/whore and its resemblance to the government-citizen pair. Now, sociologically, the scientists definitely did not want to produce a predator-prey social imbalance, as did the Federal Reserve Bank. In fact, the relationship between the femme/sissy girl pair has been determined by the U.S. Department of Commerce to be more of a pimp/whore business relationship, where the pimp is the femme, as were the Wall Street bankers, and for profit they controlled the sexual activity of the common sissy girl whore. And in this case, the whore represents the vulnerable U.S. citizen. How the biological instincts of both types play out in the pimp/whore relationship as follows, and you can find this in the Sissy Manual as well. See SM 069, Section 8, Appendix H, Pimp/whore. 1. The femme plays the dominant role in the relationship, government. 2. The sissy gladly assumes the submissive feminine role, citizen. Putting it differently, by naturally occurring events, the femme selects a pure bred-from-birth sissy to become his bitch, and this is regardless of the sissy being in either a sissy promise and or a sissy breeding marriage with a sissy breeding human female wife or a sissy married to another sissy. The sissy undergoes the following steps to be ritualistically made into the pimp's bitch. 1. Selected. 2. Dosed. 3. Declared. And 4. Branded. The chosen sissies usually live normal lives regardless of being inoculated, dosed, with a controlling substance of the femme's love cream or not. And in no way does the pimp disturb the emotional balance of society by altering previous martial and or social obligations made by the pimp's prey. In a minute, I'll go over some of the official ethics, rules, and restrictions placed on this complex whore/pimp relationship between a femme and a sissy girl. Like I said, nature takes over, so let's go over the biological and ritualistic process of forming the relationship one step at a time. This process is sometimes referred to by its scientific name, bitchification. Again, refer to the SM 069 for all the details. C. SM 069, Section 8, Appendix H. Table: Pimp/whore inoculation procedure or bitchification. But here, I'll give you the short version. 1. Selection: the femcock chooses his vulnerable prey. 2. Dosing process: sissy is inoculated with pimp's love cream. 3. Declaration: pimp proclaims ownership of the chosen sissy. 4. Branding: pimped whore is branded with the symbol of the pimp-whore partnership. The pimp uses a flesh-burning hot iron to declare the newly consummated whore to be his bitch. Ah, that's gruesome, Professor. Yes, well, the sissy is sedated at the time and feels absolutely no pain during the entire bitchification. Besides, the sissy is just a livestock animal used for sex, and farm animals are typically branded. But some of the after effects of being made into a pimped whore and bitch are as follows. Nobody who is penetrated by a femme ever forgets the sensation of the overpowering effect of their predator's inoculation. Once the femme has ejaculated pimp cream into the sissy has a feeling like she has been spiritually transformed by the pimp. The sissy's mind starts to experience hallucinations and goes into a semi-conscious trance state. This is when the hardly understood event happens, where the sissy is mind-altered into becoming a slave of their pimp, and will not obey the command of other pimps. They become slaves to only one pimp at a time, and in the sissy's mind, the pimp becomes the sissy's godlike master to be praised and worshipped forever. Yes, the dom surrounded by studs. Professor, should I be worried about being inoculated by a femme pimp? And does the pimp's love juice wear off if the sissy douches out her ass cunt? Excellent questions. No, there has never been a fatality or injury caused by being made into a pimp's whore or bitch, and there has never been a sissy abuse complaint filed with the Department of Health and Mind Control. And bear in mind, in America, only femmes can be registered pimps. So, this thing about pimps is a very guarded and well-controlled part of the whole system of worker compensation in the MSES. We'll get to the PWP rules and regulations in a moment. PWP. Being in a pimp/whore partnership, or PWP as it's called, with a femme has been described by actual sissy testimony as paradise. This unusual relationship is considered by many in academia and by sissy scholars, as well as sissyologists, to be the epitome of what sissydom is all about. The PWP is considered very beneficial to all parties involved. There are even sissies who have stalked femmes for the chance to be made into one of their harem whores. So to a common sissy, or what's referred to as an unpimped sissy, it's considered to be a privilege and an honor to be made into a pimped whore and branded as a pimp's bitch. I take it by some of the looks on your faces that I've scared some of you with the introduction of the femme mutation, especially by some of you vulnerable young sissies in the class. So I apologize about that. I didn't mean to give you guys nightmares. As far as the domination of the pimp master of the whore slave, think of it this way. The sissy is typically commanded by their masters to perform sex. Usually very pleasurable sex, I might add. And I repeat, there has never been a complaint filed against femmes for sissy abuse. Quite the contrary. There are well-known sissy authors who have written many books on the subject of the pimp-whore partnerships and pimp harems, PH, all of which have praised the cultural significance of having PWPs and PHs in the 23rd century. And no, to your second question, the magic pimp cream of the femme gives the sissy the feeling of being totally controlled by her pimp is merely a psychological side effect and is more of a spiritual condition of the soul. It's a condition because, while yes, the sissy is in a mind-numbing trance, more than that, she's transformed into a drone obeying her master's every command, more or less as the American taxpayers were prior to the US dollar collapse. And no, you sissies are not going to get pregnant. I get asked that all the time. So anyway, the answer is no. The master's inoculation wears off after 3 months. But when the sissy is dosed, their pussy belongs to their master or pimp or whatever you want to call them. Not just because of the neurochemical effect on the sissy's body by the special love cream, but also because, and we already went over this, the sissy knows there is no replacement for the sexual satisfaction the femme gave her. And this is why pimps will bang all the whores in their harem at least once a week. Not just to dose them with their love potion, but also to develop the physical bond between the pimp and his soon-to-be pimp-addicted whore. This physical dependency of their pimp's penis most always turns the pimp/whore relationship into a lifelong one. The longing for their master, and rightfully so, considering the size of their penis, keeps them wanting to be a member of their pimp's harem. Let me remind you here, because we're talking about the chronological aspect of the PWP. Femmes only have sex 10 or 20 times a week in a very ritualistic fashion. Yeah, pimps don't do quickies with their whores. So, doing the math, the femme pimp cannot mathematically have an unlimited amount of sissies under his control at any one time in his harem. Notice I'm speaking of whores in the plural. Yes, the stud drooling on the attractive dom. So, Professor, can pimps practice polygamy? Yes, but not in the sense that the whores in their harem are his wives. Not at all like stud husbands here in the United States do, since polygamy was legalized. So no, the femme doesn't practice polygamy like most Americans. The harem is more of a spiritual/religious for-profit endeavor than a marriage. And although there are documented cases of sissies falling in love with their pimp, most of the whore/pimp relationships are based on the whore worshipping the sheer magnificence, size, and sexual power of the femme's penis, and not the pimp herself. As I was saying, regardless of the overwhelming amount of young sissy whores willing to sacrifice themselves to femmes just for the opportunity to worship the pimps, the femmes are strictly regulated by the U.S. federal government, as are all facets of the MSES. Femmes and sissies are the only groups of MSES who can be involved in a pimp-whore partnership. And again, I'm always amazed by the starting similarity between the pimp/sissy relationship and the Wall Street banker and the money whore. This has been The Truth, a dirty story about a dirty country, Empty Nation series, Book 3. Written by Sue Nish. Narrated by B. Flowers. Copyright 2018 by Sebastian DeAngelis. Production copyright by Sebastian DeAngelis. Please download the current SM069 manual for further details in the series.